Slurpy Dip Budgies! Hope you guys are all doing well. I thought I would do a little quick video today on how you can resample some bass audio in Phase Plant, and something that you could do for the current remix competition for Zugzwang as well.
The parables of Phase Plant.
So this is the bass group. I took two of the stems from the folder, just the kick and snare and the bass group. And I thought, you know, one easy way that you could make a new bass out of this would be just to simply run it through into Phase Plant. So be careful, because if I make a really good bass using this technique, I might have to enter my own competition and beat you all. So no, not really. But yeah, so basically what I did was I dragged the bass group file into Phase Plant. I couldn't drag and drop straight in, so I just double clicked and went to, this is for Logic users, went to File, Function, View, Show in Finder, and then it comes up in there, and then I can just I can just drag it straight in from the Finder straight onto the granular section here. So what I've got is a bass that has got a few different versions, but it sounds kind of like this. And then if I change the macros a bit here, I get some different tones. Goes a bit nuts at this point. But the idea is that I'm getting a lot of different movements happening. And then, for example, that first one, that kind of stab, you could use that as a little stab, you know? That's sort of on the downbeat. So that'd be one cool sound to use. Basically, you know, pretty simple. But the few kind of things that I've done to make it a little bit more interesting and to give it the movement as well is I've put an LFO to modulate the kind of speed here of the grain envelope, and also I've put a little bit of movement. While this is the on the macros, the amount of the grains here. So yeah, the position as well is important, and that can be controlled by this macro. So you can just set a macro to the direct position. But also what's important is, you know, how much leeway you're going to give for the grains to be selected from. So that's where this part comes into play, the position percent. If I did a larger sort of scale here, it's going to have a wider area to pick the grains from. And if I keep it down at 0, that's going to keep it, right on that position. So that can also be useful if you want it to be a bit sharper and more just like kind of obvious, So that could also work quite well if I leave it down at 0. I might argue that is a little bit better than what I started this demonstration with, actually. But yeah, a lot of the movements coming from automating this grain envelope, and that's just the LFO going on this selection right here, So yeah, putting a nice bit of movement into the grain envelope on the LFO is going to generate some really, really crazy kind of textures and rhythms and things. So it's going to be very hectic, but if you can listen through and pick out some things in your head already that sound like usable, then you can always bounce it out and chop out those little bits, and you've at least made like a little bass hit or a little like kind of glitchy lead thing, something like that, using the original bass sample. So then, of course, it's going to sort of feel and fit in with the kind of remix vibe, So yeah, that's one idea that I had. And just the other sort of things that I've done in the Phase Plant patch is I've basically put a bit of white noise into it as well. So it's all FMing. So we have like a frequency modulation chain. And I've done it in order so it's a bit easier to understand. I've got white noise, which is just at 3%, and that's FMing into the phase of the bass group sample, the bass audio, and then that is FMing out and into a sine wave at -24, a nice subby, beefy sub juice, yeah. And basically, I'm turning the gain off on the noise and the gain off on the bass sample. So all of the output is just purely what's been FM'd through the chain into the final sine wave. So that's controlling, all that final output. And obviously we could modulate the amount of FM as well if we wanted to. I've been quite quick here with this patch. You could put a lot more movement in. All I've tracked my sort of main movement to is just the grain envelope up here and a bit of a notch filter as well, just to make it a bit more neurofunk, because like a notch filter always just makes it a bit more neuro, So that's basically the first three groups sort of talked about. Just a bit of global unison, about like sort of 33% on the spread and the blend. And then also we've got then the effects section, which does obviously do quite a lot to the sound. So it is, very, very responsible for getting a good sound going. And what I've done is then just briefly is a bit of a short convolution reverb, just the white blur, 50 milliseconds, really, really small amount on the mix, just to give it a bit of a room kind of feeling. Then again, like I said, a little bit of notch filter movement in the low mid range, because to sort of draw attention to the low mids, and then a nice bit of hard clipping distortion to sort of tie it all together, saturate it, and give it a nice bit of volume. A little bit of extra character with a phase distortion, and this one just adds a bit of brightness as well, because the tone is all the way up. Shout out to Tony, big up to Tone, and a little bit of drive, but not too much. Just brings everything into, brings everything a bit more present. Makes everything seem a bit more present in the high end. With the spread as well, gives it a bit of extra width at the same time. Bit of a dual delay, couple of percent, just to give a tiny little ping pong delay tail, which is always a nice little finish to the sound. A little bit of a high-end boost to bring out some of that grittiness, and then a tiny bit of reverb, again a couple of percent, just to put it into a space. The delay and the reverb together, just the best of both worlds when you're giving it a little tail. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about today. Just mainly just the whole principle and the idea of just dragging in that whole stem, the whole bass group kind of sample, throwing that into phase plant, and then just moving around your positions. Pay attention to the pitch of the sample as well, as the pitch goes through into the sine wave. That's going to make a big difference here as well with the different tones that you're going to get. So a good thing to check is how the pitch is going to respond once it's sort of run through the FM. And then I've gone quite crazy with the whole kind of movement on this sound, and that's purely been done by putting an LFO up here on the top right on the millisecond amount, and giving that grain envelope some movement, and that's creating this sort all these sort of crazy rhythmical patterns, which they need to be. You need to pay attention to the amount of grains as well when you're doing that. Because as you start to get really low, you can get some sort of slower, more like coherent rhythmical patterns happening. They're a bit more easy to digest, I suppose. So you can get some slower kind of bass movements going on, where you'll be able to like chop those ones out and use them like in a more obvious way that will fit like the groove, So anyway, that's basically it, wrapped up for today. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what I would do for like a remix competition, or if I had or in general if I just had some cool bass audio and I wanted to like remake it into something new. And as long as you sort of use it and sort of run it through like a sine wave again, then you're going to get that bass power in there, and then just experiment with the grain positions until you just mess around and just listen out for kind of good ideas. And when you've got one, don't be afraid to just go ahead and bounce it out, chop it up, rinse and repeat, and then maybe also add in some new basses that aren't this bass as well. So it's just a way that you could make like one particular or two particular kind of sounds that would also be wicked and are inspired by the original. But that doesn't have to be the only way, obviously, that you make the bass or lead sounds for the track. It's just one kind of idea that would tie it to the original a bit. In terms of its, noticeable timbre, because it comes from the same sound, obviously. All right, yeah. But yeah, cool sound there. Might save that preset. And thanks a lot for watching, my G's. Hope you guys are having a lot of fun with the remix comp. I'm super excited to hear all of the submissions. I think it's going to be quite a big one because, yeah, I know a lot of people are already excited about it. Maybe some more people will join in the coming days, as I've set the deadline for the 14th of December, so there's still quite a while yet. But I think it's going to be an epic live stream on the 15th of December when I listen through to all of the submissions. We're going to need a couple of hours for that, I reckon. I'll have my Christmas hat on as well, don't worry. All right, thanks a lot for watching, my G's. Have a great rest of your day. Peace out.